Howdy and welcome. My name is Josh Christian and this is These Two Hands Homestead. We believe that with these two hands and God's will we can do just about anything. Today's project, we're going to be turning this pile of wood over here that we milled on our own wood mill, lumber mill, into a nice rabbit hutch for the rabbits that we've got. Follow along and we'll walk you through this. Up first, we've got our boards. We're going to select these boards out here based on just kind of, this is what we've got. It ain't perfect, it ain't fantastic, but these are logs that we cut here off of our own property, and this saves us money over the lumber yard because we can mill them down on our own. We cut everything out. This board's 8 feet long. I measured out the different spacing for the cross supports. This is going to be an upright that goes in one of the corners. And so everywhere that I have a cross support, I've measured out and I've kind of scribbled across it so that I don't forget, because sometimes I'm kind of forgetful. And you can always put wood, or you can always take a little more wood off if you get a little carried away, or you get a little under carried away. But if you get too carried away, it's a little harder to put wood back. Down on this end of this log, we've got a little bit of rot that came on the log because these logs were sitting for a little over a year drying out, and we didn't necessarily have them propped up in the most pristine condition, but it'll work. There's enough solid core wood here to handle it. I've got most of the rot on the side that's not going to be handling the cross beams. Reason being is when I put these cross beams in here, I'm going to fasten screws through, and I need good solid wood to screw into. And I need good solid wood to support the top and bottom of each of those cross pieces. This right here, it's going to be on the inside. It's not really going to be load bearing, but it will be good enough to handle the little bit of compressive force that gets applied to it as we build this. So we'll get started cutting these pieces out and see where we get to.
Okay.
So I need to cut out these spaces here so we can inset 2x4 across this vertical support beam. And one of the easier ways to do that is just take your miter saw and just make lots and lots and lots of little cuts across the width of it here, and then you can flip the board around and take off the other side over here down to the level you want it at, so it's flat in there, and then you can go back and take a chisel or a plane or whatever and kind of smooth that out. But this is the easiest way to cut out whatever these are called. I don't know what they're called. Miter joints, whatever you want to call them. Dados. To inset the 2x4s in. Sometimes you're left over with these little bitty pieces here, but most of the time you get a pretty good clean cut there. You just gotta turn it around and do the other side eventually. I got 2 more of these to do on this board, and then we'll flip it around and do the other side. You want to make sure when you're doing this that whatever you're cutting on is good and flat, so you don't have that board wobbling, because it's very dangerous. I don't have a guard on my saw because this is cheap Harbor Freight and it broke, but safety is always important. Be careful, know your tools, know what you're doing. Don't do stuff that's going to put your hands or any of your body parts in the path of this blade. I think we're going to have to move the saw down here and put these supports down here. So these are going to be a little closer to the saw, and that's never a good thing. It's not perfect, but you know what, neither am I, so didn't have to be.
Hallelujah.
Alright.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Cuts on the back side. So 2x4 is roughly 1.5 inches. So we're about 1/4 inch off here. That's our cut line for the back side. Okay, flip it around so that those lines are maybe facing out. I'm not really in love with that way of doing it. I think what I want to do instead is just get my chisels out and I'll chisel this off with a wide chisel. It's oak, it's not going to chisel very easy, but I'm going to get wore out doing that anyway. And you can make it look a lot better with the wide chisels. Micah, go get me. No, this is called a shoulder cut. This is the easiest place to blow out wood when you're using a chisel, just because it likes to interfere with the grain. But help me flip that up. You can take the slope of your chisel, just kind of come in and peel that grain up, and then come down and cut it off nice and neat with the flat of your chisel. And there we go. For the most part, that's it. That works. And I just lather, rinse, repeat. Alright, so we've got our back uprights done. Now we need to measure out the span here. I want this to be about 8 feet wide. So we're going to take our 2x4, which is our next board down here. Make sure we've got at least 8 feet, and we're going to cut it to 8 feet. And it looks like we're going to need 5 of these. We got 9 feet 6 inches, so we're good. We got plenty.
When you guys
Get
say
those
thumbs
cut
up.
and we'll be right back with you. Alright, we're going to countersink these screws just so that they're nice and secure in there and out of the way for when we put our backer on here. We want to try to hit for the middle of this 2x4 about, split this into thirds and do 1/3 and the other third, and that way we got 2 screws in here. It'll be enough to hold this. So it doesn't, again, doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be exact, just so it's good enough. And we're just using the standard Stanley countersink bit. You can find it at any hardware store or order it online. Ain't got to be anything fancy. You do want to come up about halfway through when you're drilling to kind of let the extra sawdust out here. That'll keep your drill bit a lot cooler. Keep you from busting through them, because sometimes these get hot and then they snap, and that's not fun. Alright, next we're going to get some 2.5 inch screws in the can over there, Micah, in my impact driver. And we're going to square this up here. Go. Looks good. Now then, one trick, because we're using oak, and oak doesn't like to have screws put in it because it's just a really hard wood. You can take any kind of grease, oil, whatever, automotive grease. It's not going to hurt anything. You just put a little dab on there, and this is going to help reduce the number of these screws that you snap off in there. Makes them glide in nice and easy. Just a little dip. It doesn't take much. You don't want to overdo it because you don't want this stuff leaking out, getting all over the place. It gets messy quick if you do. But just that one little bit's enough to lubricate the threads, enough to get your screws down in there good and tight without breaking them off. I've broken quite a few heads off, and that's not very fun, because then you have to go and drill the whole thing out, including the screw, and screws don't like to drill very much. So we're going to double check this again, make sure it stayed square. As long as we can look up both sides of this and not see any daylight, we're good. Alright, so what we've got here is the back side of our rabbit hutch completed. I think this is a good place to call it for tonight. Tomorrow we'll work on the front side, and then we'll work on attaching the 2 halves together. All in total, this is going to be 8 feet wide by 2 feet deep by 8 feet on the front side and just a hair under 7 on the back. Each of these cages is going to be 2 feet cubed, so that's 2 feet wide, 2 feet tall, and 2 feet deep. That will give the rabbits 8 cubic feet, which is plenty of space for your commercial rabbits. They don't need to run all over the place. They don't need the Taj Mahal. They don't need multiple levels. They need to sit there because that's where they're going to be comfortable, and they're going to eat food, and they're going to grow big for you, and they're going to be nice and peaceful and live out their happy little existence until it's time for them to go to freezer camp. So follow along with us. Come back, see us tomorrow, and we'll get started on the front half, and we'll see you then.
Thumbs up, dude.
And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.